Hi, dear friends. Welcome to our marathon session. We are starting with language, linguistics. Are you ready, everyone? We'll start from the basics. Please answer your questions in the chat box. I have here with me all our paid course students. There are people listening to us on YouTube also. Okay, we'll go now into linguistics. Charles F. Hockett identified dash of human languages. Charles F. Hockett identified dash of human languages. It is called design features. That means the characteristics of human languages. Design features. Human languages have duality. Human languages are arbitrary. Arbitrary means no natural relationship between signifier and signified, right? Human languages have creativity, productivity, displacement, things like that. That is called the design features of human languages, defined by Charles F. Hockett as against animal communication. Okay. There are many theories of the origins of languages, how languages originated. What are some of the theories? Can you tell me? What are some of the theories of origins of languages? Yes, that is bow wow theory, poo poo theory, ding dong theory, ta ta theory. Do you remember all that? These are the yo he ho theory, correct? Origins of languages. There are some languages which have word order. Meaning is based on word order, not inflection. What kind of languages are they? Meaning is based on word order, not inflection at all. They are called analytic languages. Analytic is word order. Synthetic is inflection. Analytic is word order. Synthetic is based on inflection. Will you remember? Analytic languages and synthetic languages. Synthetic languages have inflections. Many Dravidian languages are synthetic. Analytic means based on word order. A type of synthetic language where there are affixes and words are connected together. What is it called? A type of synthetic language where there are affixes and words are connected together. Agglutinative. Agglutinative is correct. Agglutinative languages. Which famous theorist found out that Sanskrit is the mother of Latin and other Indo-European languages? Which famous theorist found out that Sanskrit is the mother? William Jones. Very good. William Jones. Vernacular dialects of Sanskrit as against classical Sanskrit are called what? Vernacular dialects of Sanskrit as against classical Sanskrit. What are they called? They are called Prakrit languages. Prakrit. You know that, right? You just forgot. No problem. They are called Prakrit. Do you remember Indo-European family? What are the first main divisions of Indo-European family? Indo-Iranian, Balto-Slavic, Germanic, and Italic. To which of these subfamilies does English belong? Is it Indo-Iranian, Balto-Slavic, Germanic, or Italic? Germanic. Very good. It is indeed Germanic. Germanic family. Right. Subfamily. Very good. Do you remember who talked about, I'm talking about another area now. Okay. Do you remember who talked about 6 functions of language? Referential function, poetic function, emotive, conative, phatic, metalingual. Who talked about the communicative functions of language? Emotive is related to addresser. Conative is related to addressee. Yes. Message is poetic. Context is referential. Contact is phatic. Yes, it is Roman Jakobson. Roman Jakobson talked about the 6 functions of language. Once again, emotive is related to which aspect of language? Addresser. Are you following me? Do you remember? Emotive, addresser. Conative, addressee. Message is poetic. Context is referential. Contact is phatic. And code is metalingual. Am I confusing you? I hope you remember this now. Okay, forget all this. No stress. Roman Jakobson talked about 6 functions of language. That is what we were talking about. No stress. Forget all that. Who is the ancient Indian sage who wrote Ashtadhyayi? Linguistic book, Ashtadhyayi. That's right. Panini wrote Ashtadhyayi. Said it? Panini wrote Ashtadhyayi. Very easy. Who developed generativism in grammar? Generative grammar, that is also easy. Who started generative grammar? Yes, it is Noam Chomsky. Before linguistics came into being, what was the study of language called? What was the study of language called? Before linguistics came into being, study of language was called philology. Study of language was called philology. Don't you remember now? In which year was Course in General Linguistics published? Course in General Linguistics. Very good. 1916. 1916. Okay. Charles Bawley and Albert Shehai. They are the people who edited it. Okay. Lang and parole. These are words from which language? Lang and parole. They are words from French. Very good. What does parole mean in French? What does parole mean in French? That's right. Parole means speaking. Speaking. Lang means language. Okay. I am teaching you linguistics. I am teaching you Old English, Middle English, Modern English. What is it called? What kind of teaching is it? What kind of linguistics is it? Very good. Old English, Middle English, Modern English. That is diachronic. Diachronic linguistics. Whereas studying language as it exists at a particular time is called what? Very good. It is called synchronic linguistics. Do you know that language study has become very important in criminology? What linguistics is used in criminology? Language study is very important in criminology. Which branch of linguistics is used in criminology? Very good. It is forensic linguistics. Forensic linguistics. Very good. No problem. Next question. Phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax. These divisions appear in macro-linguistics or micro-linguistics. Macro-linguistics or micro-linguistics. Yes, they come in micro-linguistics. Micro. Studying the inner aspects of language, such as speech sounds is phonetics, studying sound patterns is phonology, studying word structure is Morphology, studying meaning of words or word patterns is sentence word patterns. What is that called? Syntax. Meaning is semantics. Actual use of language in a context is pragmatics. These are all micro-linguistics. Give me examples of what you study in macro-linguistics. What do you study in macro-linguistics? Socio-linguistics, psycho-linguistics. Yes, very good. Neuro-linguistics, applied linguistics. All these come under macro-linguistics. Very good. That is correct. Have you heard of interlanguage? Who developed that concept? Interlanguage. Who developed that concept? Larry Selinger. Larry Selinger. Have you heard of Larry Selinger? Selinker. Larry Selinger. Very good. Let me ask you some other terms. The production or utterance of sounds is called what? Production or utterance of sound. It can be called articulation or phonation. Phonation. Right. Okay. The sound of L can differ in different contexts. The sound of L can differ in different contexts. This gives rise to different dash of the phone L. The phoneme L. The sound of L can be different in different contexts. This gives rise to dash of the phoneme L. It is allophones. Allophones. The sound of black, L, and like, L. These L and L are allophones. Very good. That's right. Now, a grapheme that represents a phoneme is called what? A grapheme that represents a phoneme is called what? Phonogram. Phonogram. Okay. A combination of two vowel sounds is called what? A combination of two vowel sounds. Diphthong. What is the other name of diphthong? Another name for diphthong. It is glide. Very good. Glide. Is this helping you? Is this helping you? This discussion? Very good. Examine. Examine. What am I talking about here? Examine. These are syllables. Correct. Examine. Examine has 3 syllables. Photograph. 3 syllables. Very good. That is right. Now, phones are distributed in their respective environments and substitution is not possible. For example, when we say spin, it's a p. Whereas when we say pin, it's a p, aspirated. What kind of distribution is this? Spin and pin. What kind of distribution of p is this? One is aspirated, pin. Substitution is not possible. Yes, it is complementary. It is complementary distribution, where phones are distributed and substitution is not possible. What is the other one where substitution is possible? Pin and bin are in contrastive distribution. Contrastive distribution. Economics and economics. A and E. What is that the example of? Economics and economics. Both are correct. That is free variation. That is called free variation. Are you getting it? Okay. The act of saying something but meaning something else. I am saying something, but I mean something else. If you don't attend marathon, I will kill you, I'm saying. But that does not mean I'll kill you. It is called implicature. Very good. Some people said implicature. No problem if you don't remember. Implicature. When I speak, my voice is rising and falling. What is that called? We should have the same dash as native speakers. Intonation. Intonation. Sorry. It is called intonation. Per turka, are these voiced or voiceless? Per turka, are these voiced or voiceless? They are voiceless. Burdaga, these are voiced. Pataka, these are voiceless. Burdaga, these are voiced. Okay? Then, peck of pickled pepper. What is it example of? Peck of pickled pepper. Pepper, pepper. Peck of pickled pepper. It's not a tongue twister. It is alliteration because pa sound is repeated. It is alliteration. Okay, it is alliteration. When we make plurals of words, okay, when we make plurals of words, sometimes we say s, sometimes we say z, sometimes we say is. What is that called? Variance of a morpheme. What is that called? Variance of a morpheme. Plural morpheme can be s or z or is. It is allomorph. Very good. Very good. Then book and booked. In book, what is in booked? What is book? What is id? Book is a free morpheme. Id is a bound morpheme. Isn't it? I'm asking you very simple things. I know you know all this. Okay, tell me this. What is the word for the rules governing the sequencing of morphemes in a language? Rules governing the sequencing of morphemes in a language. It is called morphotactics. Morphotactics is about all the rules. Okay. Okay. Now, let me ask you about different kinds of word formation. Word formation. Lab from laboratory. What is it? What kind of word formation? Lab from laboratory. Clipping. Yes, it is clipping. Net plus etiquette. Netiquette. What is that? Net plus etiquette. Netiquette. Blending. It is blending. Compounding is a little different. In blending, you clip and then blend. But in compounding, ऐसे ही you have to compound. Cupcake. Post office. Right? That is compounding. Wheelchair. Correct. Okay. Then Derrida coined the term difference. What kind of word formation is it? Difference. He used, no, it is neologism or other contribution. He added that word did not exist in language. Difference. Okay, did you understand? There was the word liaison. Liaison officer, liaison. From there we made the term to lace. What is that called? From liaison, we made that term to lace. We made the verb to lace. What is that called? Back formation. Very good. Back formation is right. You are right. A word originally has a good meaning. Then it becomes slightly bad meaning. What is that called? Good meaning word becomes bad meaning. What is that called? What is that called? Pejoration. Pejoration. Good meaning becomes bad. That is called pejoration. Easy to remember now. Okay. A word had a general meaning. For example, girl meant any young woman. Now, girl means female young girl. Any young person. Girl meaning was any young person. But now, girl means only female. What is that called? Look at my code. It is called semantic narrowing. Correct. Girl is narrowed to mean female. Semantic narrowing. Did you understand now? Very good. Going well, isn't it? Are you loving this? I'm loving this. Okay. I think we are a little tired of all this. Are you tired? Let me go into another area altogether. From where did Chomsky adopt rules of transformation to form his generative grammar? From where did he adopt rules of transformation? From mathematics. It is from mathematics. Okay. Willem Mathesius was a major figure in which school of linguistics? Willem Mathesius was a major figure in which school of linguistics? Prague School. He was in Prague School. Very good. Louis Hemslave. What did he coin? What is the term coined by Louis Hemslave? HJELMSLEV. Do you remember? Louis Hemslave. Glossomatics. Louis Hemslave coined the term glossomatics. Have you forgotten? Glossomatics. Louis Hemslave. What did M.A.K. Halliday talk about? M.A.K. Halliday. What did he talk about? It is in language acquisition, right? Ah, you have forgotten M.A.K. Halliday. He talked about what? Functions of language. Systemic function. Systemic function. Do you remember systemic functional grammar? Correct. M.A.K. Halliday talked about systemic functional grammar. Grammar, and then what did Stephen Krashen talk about? Stephen Krashen. Input monitor model. Remember input hypothesis. Do you remember input hypothesis, monitor hypothesis, affective filter hypothesis, natural order hypothesis? Stephen Krashen. Okay. Do you remember who talked about deep structure and surface structure? Deep structure and surface structure. Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky. You should brush up, okay, everyone, before the exam. Tell me who proposed universal grammar. Who proposed universal grammar? That is also Noam Chomsky. Sorry. That is also Noam Chomsky. Functional linguistics is associated with which school? Prague School. Functional linguistics is associated with Prague School. M.A.K. Halliday, we just mentioned, is he Chomskyan or anti-Chomskyan? Chomsky believed in cognitivism. He is M.A.K. Halliday is anti-Chomskyan. What is ICA? What is the full form of ICA? Immediate constituent analysis. It was developed by Roland Wells, Roulon Wells, but it was introduced by whom? Roland Wells developed it. Who introduced it? Immediate constituent analysis. That's right, it is Leonard Bloomfield. Leonard Bloomfield, he is a very important figure during the time of Saussure. Ferdinand de Saussure, right? Very good. Who developed phase structure grammar? Phase structure grammar. Phase structure grammar first developed by Chomsky. After that, Chomsky developed what? Transformational grammar. And then he developed transformational generative grammar. Phase structure grammar, transformational grammar, transformational generative grammar. Will you remember? These are very important approaches, isn't it? Phase structure grammar, transformational grammar, and transformational generative grammar. Okay. Then, do you remember who first talked about tag meme? And tag meme is developed by Leonard Bloomfield. Who developed the concept of tag mimics? Who coined the term? Who developed tag mimics? Kenneth L. Pike. Kenneth L. Pike. All right. Easy question. Who's associated with speech act theory? Speech act theory. J.L. Austin and John Searle. Who among them wrote How to Do Things with Words? How to Do Things with Words. That's right. It is J.L. Austin. Have you heard of William Leap? William Leap. Do you know what he's associated with? He's associated with LGBT linguistics. William Leap. Will you remember L-E-A-P? Okay. A stable language that develops from a mixture of languages is called what? A stable language which develops from a mixture of languages is called what? Creole. Creole. And Creole develops from, what does Creole develop from? Pidgin. Correct. Pidgin. Who is associated with the concept of communicative competence? Who is associated with the concept of communicative competence? This is against Chomsky. Del Hymes. H-Y-M-E-S. Del Hymes. Do you remember who is associated with Suggestopedia? Suggestopedia. Georgy Lozanov. L-O-Z-A-N-O-V. You should watch this marathon again if you don't remember everything. Okay, no problem. You will get it. Georgy Lozanov. Do you know which language teaching method James Asher is associated with? James Asher is associated with which language teaching method? James Asher, total physical response. Rupam said silent way. Who developed silent way? Who developed silent way? It was Caleb, correct. Gettegno. Caleb Gettegno. G-A-T-T-E-G-N-O. Caleb Gettegno. Will you remember? Good, good, good. Are you getting it? Are you remembering everything now? Is it getting better? Okay. B.F. Skinner is associated with what? B.F. Skinner. Noam Chomsky is cognitivism. B.F. Skinner is behaviorism. That's right. B.F. Skinner is behaviorism. William Labov is associated with what? William Labov. William Labov is sociolinguistics, father of sociolinguistics. Okay, let's forget all that. Have you forgotten? Let me ask you some general things. A person who knows and uses several languages, what is he called? A person, that's right, who uses several languages is a polyglot. Polyglot. Speech habits peculiar to a person is called what? Speech habits peculiar to a person. One person's peculiar speech habits is called what? Idiolect. 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 The geographical boundary between two or more dialects is called what? The geographical boundary between two or more dialects, isogloss. It is called isogloss. Isogloss. Okay, this is very easy. Mistaken use of an incorrect word instead of another word, creating a nonsensical meaning. Mistakenly, you are using an incorrect word. What is it called? Malapropism, right. Malapropism is right. Very good. H.W. Widowson is associated with what? Widowson. Widowson. Stylistics. Stylistics is an aspect of language. Stylistics. Okay. A word that is borrowed from another language for literal word-to-word translation. What is that called? A word borrowed from another language, literally, word-to-word translation. Word-to-word translation of a word, of a borrowed word. It is calque, C-A-L-Q-U-E. Calque, C-A-L-Q-U-E. Okay, will you remember that? One more question. What is the name of the society founded under the initiative of Robert Bridges? A number of writers, academics. It was in 1913 that Robert Bridges founded an academy. Did you know that? It is called the Society for Pure English. The Society for Pure English. Will you remember that? Peter Mark Roget is associated with what? Peter Mark Roget is associated with what? Have you heard Roget? I'm sure you know Roget. Thesaurus. Roget's Thesaurus. Have you heard of Roget's Thesaurus? Very good. Fowler is associated with what? I've given you a book on dictionaries and all. Do you remember? Fowler's book is Dictionary is their modern English usage. A dictionary of modern English usage is there by Fowler. Have you heard of that? A dictionary of modern English usage. By Fowler. You should remember that. Then Francis Gross, Eric Partridge. What are they associated with? Eric Partridge, do you know? Francis Gross, Grosse. What are they associated with? They are associated with Dictionary of Slang. Many people have made Dictionary of Slang. Huh? Eric Partridge is very famous author of Dictionary of Slang. Okay. What is argot? Like slang. What is argot? Argot. Argot is a secret language used by a specific group. Everybody will not know argot. Do you know a famous book written in Russian inspired argot? A famous book written in Russian inspired argot. Do you know? It is A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. Anthony Burgess's Clockwork Orange is written in Russian inspired argot. Am I boring you? Is this interesting? Is it helpful? Very good. Now, thank you guys. I just want you all to pass my 10,000, sorry, 1,000 midnights, children. Okay. Tell me, what is the study of the structure of syllables in terms of phonemes and their context of occurrence? Study of the structure of syllables, phonemes and where they occur in a syllable. It is phonotactics. Phonotactics. I hope you remember that. Phonotactics. Nay, then variety of language particular to a context. For example, doctors will use their own. You're wrong. Once again, variety of language particular to a context. Doctors will use it. Journalists will use it. It is called register. Not jargon, but register. Okay. Scopus theory, Skopos. What is it related to? Scopus theory. What is it related to? Translation. Very good. Scopus theory is related to translation. Tell me who wrote aspects of the theory of syntax? Aspects of the theory of syntax. It's a 1965 book by Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky. Very good. Now, Google was initially a noun, but now it is a verb. Let me Google. What is that called in word formation? What is that called? Conversion. That's right. Conversion. Edward Sapir belonged to which school? Edward Sapir belonged to which school of American structuralist linguistics? It is American structuralist linguistics. Will you remember? American structuralism. Last question, maybe. Who is the father of modern linguistics? Who is the father of modern linguistics? It is Ferdinand de Saussure. Ferdinand de Saussure is the father of modern linguistics. Did you like that? Ferdinand de Saussure has done many important things, right? Yes. So we'll have a 2-minute break now. Our next faculty in this marathon Dr. Sethi Lakshmi is here. Sethu, we were doing linguistics and it went really well.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Maybe we'll have small talk for 2 minutes so that people can take a breather.
Yeah.
Sethu, what are you doing today?
Today I'll be handling a session on literary terms, glossary, like from glossary of literary terms.
That's wonderful. And I think soon after that, I will be talking to them about
Prosody.
prosody also is coming. Prosody. I'm so excited to talk about figures of speech and all that. This is fun, isn't it, everyone? So much fun. Are you using these audios and videos again to revise? Before the exam, you should try that. Yes. It is not 6:45 yet. We have 1 more minute for small talk. So, dear YouTubers, I hope you're all doing well as well. Our people from our course are crazy. They are revising so much. So much. I
It's
think we
amazing to see them answering to every question.
have absolutely. I think we are having more revisions than live classes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We hope
Right.
you guys are enjoying it.
Okay, Setu, I think it's time for you. And it is time for me to be quiet. Okay, carry on.
Yes. So, shall we begin the session? Hope you all are ready. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Tanuja. Yes. So, here goes the first question. Which philosophy significantly influenced the absurdist movement? Which philosophy significantly influenced the absurdist movement? So, I can give you two options. Is it utilitarianism or existentialism? Yes. So many are answering yes. Right answer. Yes. Existentialism. Yes. Absurdist literature draws on existentialist ideas, particularly the tension between humanity's search for meaning and the universe indifference. So, yes, existentialism. Yes. Correct answer. Okay. Next question. Which of the following plays, I'll give you two options, is a classic example of the literature of the absurd? Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett or Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller? What could be the answer? Yes. Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Yes. Yes, right answer. Yeah. Yes. Nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes. It's awful. These are lines from which work? Nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes. It's awful. Waiting for Godot. Yes. What is the subtitle of Waiting for Godot? Can you remember? What is the subtitle of Waiting for Godot? Yes. A tragic comedy in two acts. A tragic comedy in two acts. A tragic comedy in two acts. Yes. Yes. Right answer. Yes. Let's move on to the next question. John Bunyan's Pilgrim Progress is what kind of allegory? John Bunyan's Pilgrim Progress is what kind of allegory? What do you mean by allegory? An allegory is a literary device or narrative in which characters, events, or settings represent abstract ideas or moral qualities. So, what could be the answer? Yes, it is a religious allegory or spiritual allegory, which comes under the broader category of allegory of ideas. Allegory of ideas. Yes, so many answered it correctly. Yes. Yes, spiritual allegory or religious allegory. But remember, it comes under the broader category of allegory of ideas. Allegory of ideas. Who is the central character in Pilgrim's Progress? Who's the central character? Can you remember the name of the central character? Yes. Christian. Yes. Christian. Christian. Yes. Right answer. Yes. Right answer, yes. What does paradox? Next question. What does paradox mean in literature? What does paradox mean in literature? Is it a humorous exaggeration or is it a statement that seems self-contradictory but reveals a deeper truth? What could be the answer? Is it a humorous exaggeration or is it a statement that seems self-contradictory but reveals a deeper truth? Yes. Yes. So many are answering it right. Yes. It is a statement that seems self-contradictory but reveals a deeper truth. Reveals a deeper truth. Yes. Right answer. Yes. David Lodge's Campus trilogy. Can you remember those three novels? Can you remember the titles of these three works? He wrote Campus novel, Campus trilogy. Can you remember those three works? David Lodge's Campus novels. He wrote a Campus trilogy. Can you remember the names of these three works? Many times I've asked questions from David Lodge's works. Can you remember those three works? Changing Places. Yes, right answer. Changing Places. Small World, An Academic Romance, and Nice Work. These three works that constitute Campus trilogy. Yes, academic novel and campus novels, they are also called academic novel, university novels. So these are some of the other terms of campus novels. Campus novels. So here goes my question. What is a varsity novel? What is a varsity novel? What is a varsity novel? Varsity novel, again, that is also a type of academic novel, but yes, it features students, the life of the students. But campus novels, these kinds of novels feature the lives of professors as well as the students. So that is the difference between a varsity novel and a campus novel. Campus novel. So Evelyn Waugh, Brideshead Revisited. That is an example of a what kind of novel? Evelyn Waugh, Brideshead Revisited. That is an example of a varsity novel. Earlier, we mentioned about a campus trilogy written by David Lodge. That constitute these three works, Changing Places. Then, Small Work, which is subtitled An Academic Romance, and Nice Work. These three works, they are part of a campus trilogy. Which is the other famous campus novel? Can you remember the title of the famous campus novel written by Kingsley Amis? Kingsley Amis. Lucky Jim. Yes, Lucky Jim. That is also again example of a campus novel. Yes, Lucky Jim. Varsity novel. Yes. Yes. Shall we move on to the next question? Shall we move on to the next question? So remember, this is the major difference between a varsity novel and a campus novel. Varsity novel, it discusses the lives of the students, but campus novel, it discusses the lives of both professors and students. That is a major difference. But again, the setting usually is in universities and academic campuses. So, but again, this is the predominant difference between a campus novel and a varsity novel. Okay, and Evelyn Voss, Brideshead Revisited. That is an example of a varsity novel. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Is there a confusion? Do you want me to repeat? I hope it's clear now. Yes. So shall we move on to the next question? Shall we move on to the next question? Okay. So, Ode on a Grecian Urn by John Keats is an example of which kind of ode? Ode on a Grecian Urn by John Keats is an example of which type of ode? Irregular ode or Horatian ode? Yeah. Are you submitting the answers? Yes. It is an example of an irregular ode. It is an example of an irregular ode. And according to Keats, he wanted to explore more about the ideas of art, beauty, and poetry. And this particular type of ode, it does not follow any specific rhyme scheme or structure. And Keats wrote this particular work, Ode on a Grecian Urn, in the irregular ode format. Is that clear? Irregular odes, because he felt the pindaric ode form was inadequate for expressing complex emotions, and he developed irregular ode, and he wrote this particular work in the form of an irregular ode. Yes. The River Duddon. Next question. The River Duddon, Altawise by Owl Light, The House of Life. All these are examples of The River Duddon, The Altawise by Owl Light, The House of Life. All these are examples for sonnets or ballads. These are the two options. The River Duddon by Wordsworth. Altawise by Owl Light by Dylan Thomas. All these are examples of The House of Life by D.G. Rossetti. All these are examples of sonnet sequences or sonnet cycles. All these are examples of sonnet sequences or sonnet cycles. So it's very important. Maybe you can expect questions like which of the following is not an example of a sonnet sequence. So which of the following is not an example? So maybe you can expect those type of questions. So make sure to identify the genre in which these works had been written. So remember The River Duddon, that's a sonnet sequence by William Wordsworth, Altawise by Owl Light by Dylan Thomas, and The House of Life by D.G. Rossetti. All these are examples for sonnet sequences. Sonnets from Portuguese. Who wrote sonnets from Portuguese? That consist of 44 sonnets. Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Yes, right answer. Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Yes. Yes, right answer. Yes. Okay, shall we move on to the next question? What is apostrophe in literature? What is apostrophe in literature? What is apostrophe in literature? Is it a kind of exaggeration, or is it a rhetorical device where a speaker directly addresses an absent person, or is it an exaggerated metaphor? What could be the answer? Yes. Apostrophe in literature is a rhetorical device where a speaker directly addresses an absent person or an abstract idea or an inanimate object, as if they are capable of understanding and responding. Okay. For example, P.B. Shelley's Ode to the West Wind. That is an example for apostrophe in literature, where Shelley addresses the west wind as, "Oh, wild west wind, though breath of autumn's being." So that has been addressed to the west wind, but here you can find an abstract idea. So that is an example for apostrophe in literature. Is that clear? Is that clear? Yes. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Who wrote English and Scottish popular ballads? That is again a ballad sequence. English and Scottish ballads. English and Scottish ballads. English and Scottish popular ballads. Yes, that's a very easy question. English and Scottish popular ballads, which includes how many ballads? 305 ballads. Remember, it includes 305 ballads. Yes, Francis J. Childs. Yes, Francis J. Child. He wrote English and Scottish popular ballads. So that can be considered as one of the modern collection of ballads. Modern collection of ballads by Francis J. Child. And remember, it consists of 305 ballads. 305 ballads. Yes, 305 ballads. Who wrote Relics of Ancient English Poetry? Very easy question. Relics of Ancient English Poetry. Published in the year 1765. Who wrote? Yes, right answer. Correct. Thomas Percy. Thomas Percy wrote, yeah, he published his Relics of Ancient English Poetry in the year 1765. 1765. Yes, 1765. Yes. Let's move on to the next question. Who wrote Archetypal Patterns in Poetry? Archetypal Patterns in Poetry, which is a representative example in archetypal literary criticism, this particular work. Yes. Archetypal Patterns in Poetry, published in the year 1934 by, yes, right answer, Maud Bodkin. Maud Bodkin wrote Archetypal Patterns in Poetry, and he was highly influenced by Carl Jung's philosophy. Yes. Yes. Right answer. Right answer. Who wrote Anatomy of Criticism? Who wrote Anatomy of Criticism? We discussed this book while we dealt with Canadian literature. Remember? Northrop Frye, he was a Canadian critic. Yes, Northrop Frye. He wrote Anatomy of Criticism. Anatomy of Criticism. Anatomy of Criticism. Yes, remember? And remember, when you study criticism or concepts related to a particular theory, please make sure to identify the various critics associated with that particular group. So that is also very important. Who wrote the essay, What is an Author? Who wrote the essay, What is an Author? There he raised this question of the notion of the author, the historical coming into being of the notion of the author. That is a very important essay written by, who wrote the essay? Who wrote Archaeology of Knowledge? Who wrote? Yes, Michel Foucault. Michel Foucault. Remember Michel Foucault? He wrote this influential essay, What is an Author? What is an Author? Where he discussed about the notion of the author and the evolution of the author function. And the evolution of the author function within the discourse of our culture. Within the discourse of our culture. Michel Foucault. Michel Foucault. Who wrote the Death of the Author? Who wrote the celebrated essay, Death of the Author? It's a very easy question. Who wrote the essay? Roland Barthes. Yes. Roland Barthes. Yes. Yes. On the Road. On the Road. That is an influential novel of which movement? Influential novel of which movement? that movement. It was popular in the 1950s. They shared a set of social attitudes, anti-establishment, anti-political, anti-intellectual movement. Can you remember the movement or the group of writers and this particular work, On the Road, that can be considered as an influential novel of this particular movement? The movement was centered in San Francisco. Can you remember? Yes, Beat Generation of writers, Beat generation of writers. Beat generation of writers. Yes. Can you remember the names of writers who were associated with this movement? Yes. On the Road, written by Jack Kerouac. Yes, Jack Kerouac. Okay, yes. So, who wrote the poem The Howl? That is again another representative example of this movement. The Howl, that's a long poem by Allen Ginsberg. Allen Ginsberg. Yes, right. Right answer, yes. Please remember the members associated with the movement. Members associated with the movement. And also it's very important to make a list of those works associated with the movement. On the Road, that is again another work associated with this movement. Then Howl, that's a poem. So, okay. Shall we move on to the next question? What does anagnorisis signify in a tragedy? What does anagnorisis signify in a tragedy? I can give you two options. Is it the central character's moment of recognition or discovery, or a reversal of fortune? Or a reversal of fortune? What could be the answer? A reversal of fortune or the protagonist's moment of recognition or discovery? Oedipus realizing his true identity in Oedipus Rex. That is an example of an anagnorisis. So what could be the answer? Yes. Yes, the protagonist moment of recognition or discovery. So a reversal of fortunes. What is the term for that? Reversal of fortunes. Peripetia, yes. Peripetia, yes. Right answer, yes. Reversal of fortunes. Yes, peripetia. Right answer. Yes. Let's move on to the next question. What is a villanelle? What is a villanelle? Is it a 14-line sonnet or a 19-line poem with repeating rhymes or refrains? What could be the answer? Do not go gentle into that good night. That is an example of a villanelle. Yes, it is a 19-line poem with repeating rhymes and refrains. Repeating rhymes and refrains. Yes, repeating rhymes and I'll yes. Is that clear? Okay. What is a long next question? What is a long narrative poem about heroic deeds called? What is a long narrative poem about heroic deeds called? Is it epic or ballad? Is it epic or ballad? Yes. Epic. Epic. Yes. Epic. What do you mean by an epithet? What do you mean by an epithet? Can you remember? The glittering forfex, that is an epithet for the scissors with which the baron performs his heinous act in rape of the lock. So what do you mean by an epithet? Can you remember epithets? That denotes an adjective. That denotes an adjective or adjectival phrase used to describe a distinctive quality of a person or a thing. Yes. So remember, glittering forfex, that is an adjectival phrase for scissors, and Alexander Pope used this particular phrase in order to describe the scissors in Rape of the Lock. Is that clear? Yes. Who coined the term interpretive? Who introduced the concept of interpretive communities? Who coined the phrase or who introduced the concept of interpretive communities, which is again another important concept in reader response criticism. Here, interpretive communities is composed of members who share a particular reading strategy or set of community assumptions. Who introduced this particular concept? Who introduced this particular concept? Who wrote, is there a text in this class? Who wrote, is there a text in this class? Can you remember the writer? Who wrote, Surprised by Sin, The Reader in Paradise Lost? Yes, Stanley Fish. Yes, Stanley Fish. Remember, he introduced this concept of interpretive communities. Interpretive communities. Interpretive communities. Yes. Are you getting bored? Are you getting bored? No. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So let's continue. Let's continue. So I'll give you some examples, and please identify the group of, I'll give you some examples like, okay, Thomas Parnell's Night Piece on Death, Edward Young's long poem Night Thoughts, Robert Blair's The Grave. All these are examples of what kind of poetry? Thomas Gray's Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, yes. All these are examples for graveyard poems. Yes, graveyard poems. Yes, graveyard poems. So remember, so these are some of the examples. Thomas Parnell's Night Piece on Death, Edward Young's long poem, Night Thoughts, Robert Blair's The Grave. All these are examples of graveyard poems. Graveyard poems. Yes. Who wrote Critics and Criticism, or who edited Critics and Criticism, Ancient and Modern, that can be considered as the manifesto of which famous school? That can be considered as the manifesto of which famous school? Critics and Criticism, Ancient and Modern. Who edited this particular work? R.S. Crane. Yes, R.S. Crane. Yes, R.S. Crane, who belonged to this school of criticism called Chicago School of Criticism. And Chicago School of Criticism is also known as, can you remember the other name for Chicago School of Criticism? New Aristotelians. Yes, New Aristotelians. That is the another name for Chicago School of Criticism. Can you remember those critics associated with that particular group? Other critics other than R.S. Crane. Many times they've asked questions from Chicago School of Criticism. So can you remember the other members? Elder Olson, Richard McKeown, Norman MacLean, R.S. Crane. All these critics, they were associated with this movement, group of American academicians. Group of American academicians. Yes. Yes. Shall we move on to the next question? Are you ready? Shall we move on to the next question? Yes. So, which term refers to a recurring structure, contrast, or literary device in a work? There is a term for this particular aspect. That is, a term refers to a recurring structure, contrast, or literary device in a work. What could be the answer? Is it motive or symbol? Is it motive or symbol? The green light in Great Gatsby, that represents Gatsby's longing for Daisy, and it also represents for American Dream. So that is an example for a motive. Motive. Motive in Great Gatsby. So that green light. So this motive that refers to a recurring structure, contrast, or literary device in a work. 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 Yes. So, shall we move on to the next question? The bishop orders his tomb. The bishop orders his tomb. My last duchess. All these are examples of which kind of monologue. There is a particular term for that poetry. These are all representative examples, particularly My Last Duchess, Andrea del Sarto. All these are examples of where the character utters a monologue that expresses his or her private thoughts. Dramatic monologue, dramatic monologue, dramatic monologue. The bishop orders his tomb. My Last Duchess, Andrea del Sarto. All these are examples of dramatic monologue. Again, many times they've asked questions from dramatic monologue as well. For example, the features of dramatic monologue, examples of dramatic monologue. So remember, when you study a type of poem, or for example, can you remember the examples of closet drama? Please make sure to learn the examples as well. That is again very important. Yeah, so these are some of the examples of dramatic monologue. Closet drama, we already discussed this. Yes. Atlanta in Caledon, Samson Agonistes, all these are examples of closet drama. Closet drama. Yes. Who wrote the essay on genius and common sense? Prometheus Unbound, yes. Who wrote the essay on genius and common sense? There he describes about impressionistic criticism. That is again part of his table talk essays. That's the clue here. So who wrote this particular essay on genius and common sense? William Hazlitt. Yes, William Hazlitt. William Hazlitt. William Hazlitt. William Hazlitt, yes. What is the subtitle of Surprised by Sin? What is the subtitle of Surprised by Sin? What is the subtitle of Surprised by Sin? The Reader in Paradise Lost, yes. The Reader in Paradise Lost by Stanley Fish, yes. Stanley Fish. Who wrote the well-wrote urn that discuss about the close reading aspects of work, close reading features of single text? Well-wrote urn. Clint Brooks, yes. Right answer. Yes. Right answer. Yes. Do you want me to type it out? Yeah. Wait. The well-wrote urn. Yes. Shall we move on to the next question? Shall we move on to the next question? Yes. So, who wrote I'm trying to find an easy question. So, who wrote Silent Spring? Who wrote Silent Spring? That is a representative, that is a example of eco-criticism. Eco-criticism. Yes. Yes. There she describes about the chemical pesticides, the implications, the impact of chemical pesticides on wildlife. Yes. Rachel Carson. Rachel Carson. Rachel Carson. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Right answer. So next question. The Fall, The House of Fame, The Book of the Duchess, The Fall of Hyperion, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. All these are examples of, yes, dream vision or dream allegory. Yeah, dream allegory or dream vision. Yes, dream vision or dream allegory. Dream vision or dream allegory. Yes. Who wrote Bloomsbury Recalled? Who wrote Bloomsbury Recalled? That describes about the life of Bloomsbury group of writers, critics. Can you remember? That's a memoir. So remember, that's a memoir written by the son of Clive Bell and Vanessa Stephen. Bloomsbury Recalls. That is the title of a work by Quentin Bell. Quentin Bell wrote Bloomsbury Recalled. So that's a work written by Quentin Bell, the son of Clive Bell and Vanessa Stephen. So this particular work is very important because there he described about the life of these members, about their manifesto. So that is very important. Bloomsbury Recalled. Can you remember the year of the formation? At least the decade in which the Bloomsbury group formed? Because once this question was asked, is it 1910s or 1920s? 1910s or 1920s? Those were the options given. Yes, 1910s. It was formed in the initial year. 1905. 1905. So that decade is very important because when you study the movements, please make sure to learn some of the important years as well. Years, members, and important works associated with that movement. That is very important. Yes. Okay. So, next question. Can you remember the publication year of Practical Criticism by I.A. Richards and 7 Types of Ambiguity? Can you remember the publication year? Of William Empson's 7 Types of Ambiguity and I.A. Richards' Practical Criticism? 1930. 1930. That is again important. 1930. Yes. 1930. Yes. Who wrote New Negro, an interpretation? Who wrote New Negro, an interpretation? Who edited the anthology New Negro, an interpretation, which defined the spirit of the Harlem Renaissance? Yes. Right answer. Who edited this particular anthology, New Negro, an interpretation? That is an anthology edited by Alan Locke. Alan Locke edited this particular anthology that defined the spirit of the Harlem Renaissance. Yes, right answer. Harlem Renaissance. Yes. Are you guys tired? Shall we move on to the next question? Yeah, new Negro movement. Yeah, yes. Shall we move on to the next question? Yes. So, next question. Who wrote Work on Myth? That is again a classic text in myth criticism. Work on Myth. That is again written by a German historian. Can you remember the writer? Hans Blumenberg. Hans Blumenberg. He wrote this particular work, Work on Myth. There he described about the function of myth and how is it associated with the lives of human beings. So this particular work is important. Work on myth. Work on myth. Work on myth. Work on myth. Okay. So that work is important. Yes. So let's move on to the next question. Let's move on to the next question. Who wrote two kinds of poetry? Who wrote two kinds of poetry? Who wrote two kinds of poetry? That's a work written by two kinds of poetry. That's a work written by. There he described about the characteristic features of lyric poetry. Can you remember the writer? That is again a work on literary criticism by J.S. Mill. J.S. Mill, he wrote two kinds of poetry. Two kinds of poetry. Two kinds of poetry. Who wrote The Mirror and the Lamp? Who wrote The Mirror and the Lamp? Who wrote The Mirror and the Lamp? Yes. Who wrote The Mirror and the Lamp? Yes. By M.H. Abrams. M.H. Abrams. Yes. Anne of Green Gables. That is an example of. Can you remember the genre in which this work has been written? That is again a kind of regional work. So can you remember the detailed representation about a setting, about a dialect, about the customs of a particular region? So that is an example of a local color novel. Local color novel. So that is again very important. So Anne of Green Gables, that is an example of a local color novel. And there are many works in American literature that described about the regional aspects of a work. So these kind of works, they are also classified as regional narratives, regional literature. So local color novel by Green Gables, that is an example of a local color novel. Yes. So, who proposed the term intentional fallacy? Who proposed the term intentional fallacy? Who proposed the term intentional fallacy? Wimsatt and Beardsley. And later, earlier it was written in an essay form, and later it was reprinted in a particular book. Can you remember the name of the book? The verbal icon. The verbal icon. The verbal icon. The verbal icon. Who introduced the concept of anxiety of influence? Who introduced the concept of anxiety of influence? Anxiety of influence. Can you remember the writer? Can you remember the critic? Harold Bloom. Harold Bloom. Yes. Harold Bloom. Yes. Harold Bloom. Yes. So there is a work that is titled A Contract with God and Other Tenement Stories. This is going to be the last question. A contract with God and other tenement stories. That is a contract with God and other tenement novels. This particular work is important because the term graphic novel was first applied to this work. The term graphic novel was first applied to this work, a contract with God and other tenement stories. That is a collection of linked graphic narratives. Yes, a contract with God and other tenement stories. That is the title of the work. A contract with God. A contract with God and other tenement stories. Yes, here this term, the term graphic novel was first applied to this work. Yes. Can you remember the writer? We discussed this when we learned about graphic narratives. Yes. Will Eisner. Yes, Will Eisner. So, yes. So I hope the session was beneficial for you all. Thank you so much, everyone. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Rishati is here. Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Pugarandi. Good evening, Aishwarya. Good evening, Chandana. Good evening, Anuradha. Okay. Good evening, Kalpana. See, I'm telling you, this good evening session, that is like your break. Good evening, Ananya. Good evening, Nidhi. Good evening, Monica. Good evening, YouTubers. Good evening, Abhi. Good evening, G. Good evening, Kaiser. Good evening, Lakshmi. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to ma'am's YouTube babies. Good evening, Nidhi. Good evening, Monidipa. Good evening, Deena. Good evening, Madhurya. I hope you all are preparing well. Good evening, Gitanjali. So now let's get started with research methods, shall we? Good evening, Pallavi. I hope I did not miss anyone. Okay, let's get started then. So the first one will be an easy question. Yes, yes. Okay. So the first question. So I'll give you a definition. You have to tell me who defined research as such. Research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. Do you remember who said that? Research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. We are discussing research methods in English now. Research is a formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. Who defined research as such? Yes, finally, Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston. She's the one, the Black American folklorist, African American folklorist, that is the correct usage. And she was also associated with Harlem Renaissance. She defined research as a formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. Now, do you remember the earliest record of the term research? When was the earliest, like the first time it was recorded? The term research was recorded for the first time where and when? The earliest recorded use of the term research was in which year? and where? The earliest recorded use of the term research was in 1577. In 1577. And it was in this a book called Legendary, which is by F.D. Lyell. Just in case if you have forgotten, note it down. It was in 1577 in this book called Legendary by F.D. Lyell. Okay, now dash is a testable prediction or statement about the relationship between variables. Dash is a testable prediction or statement about the relationship between variables. What is that? Hypothesis. Yes, hypothesis. Correct. Now, can you tell me what research method involves the in-depth study of a single case or a small number of cases? In the nomenclature only, it gives away the answer. Yes, case study. Very simple. Now, can you tell me which research approach starts with a theory and tests hypothesis through data collection? Which research approach starts with a theory and then tests hypothesis, SES, through data collection? Which is that? It is the deductive approach. I asked research approach. Deductive approach. Deductive approach. Now, I'll give you two statements. It's like an assertion reason question. Okay, so we have to practice every type of questions, right? So if the assertion says, thematic analysis is a common method used in qualitative research to identify patterns within data. This is the assertion. Thematic analysis is a common method used in qualitative research to identify patterns within data. Remember this. Then moving to the reason part, thematic analysis involves coding data and organizing these codes into themes to interpret the data meaningfully. I'll repeat. Thematic analysis involves coding data and organizing these codes into themes to interpret the data meaningfully. So what do you think? Both A and R are true, and the reason part is the correct explanation of A? Or is both and R true, but R is not the correct explanation of A? Or one is true, one is false? What do you think? Yes, A and R, both are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. Very good. You remembered everything and answered it correctly. Okay. Now, in research, what is the term for a statement that predicts the relationship between two or more variables? In research, what is the term for a statement that predicts the relationship between two or more variables? Hypothesis. Yes, correct. Hypothesis is the correct answer. And now I'll give you a statement. You have to tell me it's true or false. A descriptive research describes characteristics of a population or phenomenon being studied without manipulating variables. True or false? A descriptive research describes characteristics of a population or phenomenon being studied without manipulating variables. True or false? Yes, it is true. Now, experimental research tests hypotheses by manipulating variables in a controlled environment to observe effects on a dependent variable. True or false? Experimental research tests hypotheses by manipulating variables in a controlled environment to observe effects on dependent variable. True or false? Yes, true again. Now, qualitative research involves collecting non-numerical data to understand concepts opinions or experiences. True or false? True again. True again. Now, if I say quantitative research does not focus on collecting and analyzing numerical data to identify patterns, averages, predictions, etc. Quantitative research does not focus on collecting, analyzing numerical data to identify patterns, averages, or predictions. That would be false. Yes, because it is about collecting and analyzing numerical data. Now, which method involves manipulating one or more variables in a controlled environment to observe the effects on another variable? And it establishes a cause and effect relationship? Yes, experimental method. We discussed it just now. Now, which method involves the systematic collection and analysis of data from past events, documents, or records to understand and interpret historical developments? Yes, it is historical method. Archival is also correct, but here, I mean, in archival, there will be this word called records, documents, and data without collecting new data. If that is added, then that will be archival. Okay, involves examining existing records, documents, or sets to explore patterns, relationship, historical trends without collecting any new data. It's only the archives are collected there. Now, which is the method that involves immersive observation and participation within a community or culture to understand their practices, values, social interactions from an insider perspective? Ethnographic method. Yes, correct. Ethnographic method. Now, which I will give you four options, which is not a characteristic of qualitative research, which is not a characteristic of qualitative research. Subjectivity, flexibility, large sample size, and detailed description. What do you think is not a characteristic of qualitative research? Subjectivity, flexibility, large sample size, and detailed description. Large sampling, yes, large sample size. Large samples, we mainly need it in quantitative, and qualitative, not much. Now, what is the primary purpose of literature review in research? I will give you a few statements. You have to tell me it's true or false. Is it to summarize the research findings? No, false. Is it to provide a historical background? No, false. Is it to identify gaps and establish the context for the study? Yes, finally, true. And is it to present the author's personal opinions? No, it is to fill the gaps, identify the gaps, and then establish the context for the study. So identifying the gap is the primary purpose of literature review. Now, what is the primary goal of an ethnographic study? Primary goal of an ethnographic studies. Here also I'll give you statements. You have to tell me if it is true or false. To test a specific hypothesis, is it? No. Is it to explore cultural phenomena within a specific group? Yes, true. Is it to establish a cause and effect relationships? No, no. And is it to analyze any numerical data? No, it's purely qualitative. Now, what is the primary focus of action research? Is it to test theoretical models? Is it to test theoretical models? No. Is it to describe phenomena? Is primary focus of action research to describe phenomena? No, false. Is it to solve immediate practical problems? True. Yes, it is to solve immediate practical problems. And it is also not to develop any new research methodology. I'll give you a statement. You have to tell me, does that statement best describe the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis? Language determines thought and perception. Language determines thought and perception. True. Very good. Yes. So this statement, language determines thought and perception, best describes the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Very good. A hypothesis that predicts significant effect is a null hypothesis. True or false? A hypothesis that predicts a significant effect is a null hypothesis. True or false? False. A hypothesis that predicts no effect or no relationship is a null hypothesis. It does not predict a significant effect, but whereas it predicts no effect or no relationship. Now, the primary characteristic of a longitudinal study is to examine data from single point of time. True or false? False. The primary characteristic of a longitudinal study is not to examine data from a single point in time, whereas it studies the same subjects over a long period of time. It studies the same subjects over a long period of time. Okay. Yes. Which research method studies written or spoken language in relation to its social context and aims to understand how language is used in real life situations? Which research method studies written or spoken language in relation to its social context and aims to understand how language is used in real life situations? Use of language, I had explained it. Discourse analysis. Discourse analysis studies written or spoken language in relation to its social context and aims to understand how language is used in real life situation. Okay, it's discourse analysis. Now, what is the primary purpose of a pilot study in research? The primary purpose of a pilot study in research. Is it to review literature? Is it to review literature? No. Is it to publish findings? Is it to publish findings? No, it's a pilot study. It is not used to publish findings, whereas it is used to gather preliminary data and test feasibility, how feasible it is, how feasible the research is, to gather preliminary data and test feasibility. That is the primary purpose of a pilot study. The term dash refers to a process of analyzing data from different perspectives and then summarizing it into a useful information, often to discover patterns or systematic relationship among variables. I'll repeat. The term dash refers to a process of analyzing data from different perspectives and summarizing it into useful information, often to discover patterns or systematic relationships among variables. Okay, you want options? So the options would be literature review, data mining, data analysis, research methodology. It is data mining. It is data mining. Data mining refers to the process of analyzing data from different perspectives and summarizing it into useful information, often to discover patterns. So that's why it's mining. You are mining the data to discover patterns and then establish a systematic relationship among the variables. Why is it not data analysis? Because you're analyzing the data. You're analyzing it not to discover some patterns or not. You are giving your analysis of the data. Whereas here you mine and see and check if there is a pattern or any systematic relationship among the variables. That's why the correct answer is data mining. Okay. So, which research method is concerned with the reconstruction of life histories and uses various empirical sources such as life narratives, oral stories, diaries, and memorials? Which research method is concerned with the reconstruction of life histories and uses various empirical sources such as life narratives, oral stories, diaries, and memorials? It is autobiographical research. Autobiographical research. It is concerned with life histories, then checking from the narratives, oral stories, hearing about stories, diaries, memorials. So these are personal accounts. Historical account would have been things of the past recorded in history. That's why it's not recorded. See, it's a personalized thing that you are collecting and using memorials and diaries. So that's why it's autobiographical research. Okay. Now, uh, which method is a collection and study of historical information about individuals, families, important events, or everyday life using audio tapes or videotapes or transcriptions of planned interviews? Listen to the description till the end. So otherwise you will be confused. So following is which is the collection and study of historical information about individuals, families, important events, or everyday life using audio tapes, videotapes, or transcriptions of planned interviews. You want options? Options will make you even more confused. So I will give you options. Is it archival, oral history, or discourse analysis? Archival method, oral history, or discourse analysis? It is oral history because you're only looking at transcriptions of planned interviews or videotapes or audio tapes. That's why I said listen till the end. It's not all types of archives, all types of written records or everything. You are looking into only the transcriptions of interviews, audio tapes, videotapes of individuals, families, important events which people are speaking about. That's why it is oral history. Okay, oral history is the correct answer. Okay, I'll repeat, which is the collection and study of historical information about individual, families, important events, or everyday life using audio tapes, videotapes, or transcriptions of planned interviews. So interviewing, so that's why it is oral history. Now, which is a qualitative research method that relies on artistic medium, including film, photography, drawings, paintings, sculptures, to produce and represent knowledge. Film, photography, drawings, paintings, and sculptures. Yes, it is visual methodologies. Visual methodologies. Correct. Very good. Now, rhetorical criticism, context analysis, interaction analysis, and performance studies. These are 4 major approaches in dash. Rhetorical criticism, content analysis, interaction analysis, and performance studies. These are 4 major approaches in dash. You want me to give options since I'm not receiving any response? So discourse analysis, textual analysis, thematic analysis, critical analysis. Once more, rhetorical criticism, content analysis, interaction analysis, and performance studies are 4 major approaches in, is it discourse analysis? Is it textual analysis? Is it critical analysis? Or is it thematic analysis? It is textual analysis. Textual analysis. Rhetorical criticism. So when you're analyzing a text, you will check the rhetorical criticism. You will analyze the content, then the interaction. And if it is a performative text, then the performance is studied. So these are 4 major approaches in textual analysis. Okay, do remember it. Now, which research method involves the comparative study of different texts to highlight their similarities and differences? This is an easy one. If I give you the options, you will readily recognize it. So, which is the research method involves the comparative study of different texts to highlight their similarities and differences? Is it comparative analysis or is it critical discourse analysis? Yes, it is comparative analysis. Very good. Since you are comparing text, comparative study of different texts. So it is comparative analysis. Now, in literary research, what is the term for collection and study of different manuscripts of the same work to understand textual variations? In literary research, what is the term for collection of and study of different manuscripts of same work to understand the textual variations? Okay, I'll give you options. Reception theory, textual criticism, archival criticism, discourse analysis. Reception theory, textual criticism, archival criticism, and discourse analysis. It is textual criticism. So in literary research, textual criticism is used to collect and study different manuscripts of the same work and understand the textual variations. It is textual criticism. Now, who is the author of Archive Fever that discusses the nature and function of the archive, and particularly in Freudian terms and in the light of death drive? Do you know who is the author of Archive Fever? And Archive Fever, it discusses the nature and function of archive, and particularly in Freudian terms and in the light of death drive. Do you want options? Oh, you are answering. Yes, it is Jacques Derrida. It's Jacques Derrida. He wrote Archive Fever. Now, which term is used to refer to an accumulation of historical records or materials in any medium or the physical facility in which they are located? This you know. Used to refer to an accumulation of historical records or materials in any medium. It can be in any medium, or the physical facility in which they are located. It is the archive. So archive is the term which is referred to this accumulation of this archives. The historical records are called archives then. And it can be in any medium. It can be recorded, it can be written. So that is called an archive. Now, dash is the collection and study of historical information. I have asked it already about individuals, important events, everyday life using videotapes, audio tapes, and transcription of planned interview. I asked and I explained also. So I'm just checking if you remember. Oral history, yes, good. Oral history is the collection and study of historical information about individual, families, important events, or everyday life using audio tapes, videotapes, or transcription of planned interviews. Yes. Now, who is the key advocate of the new wave of oral history and also the author of The Voice of the Past? Do you know who that is? An advocate of the new wave of oral history and is also the author of The Voice of the Past. Yes, Chandana, Paul Thompson. Yes, Paul Thompson. And do you know when was The Voice of the Past published? Paul Thompson is the key advocate of the new wave of oral history, and he has also written this work called The Voice of the Past. Do you know when was that published? The Voice of the Past? 1978. Very good. 1978. Now, again, back to true or false statement. So, discourse analysis, does it aim at revealing socio-psychological characteristics of a person? Does it aim at revealing socio-psychological characteristics of a person? Actually, it does. It is not only concerned with the investigation of written language, but it is also a very common qualitative research method in humanities and even in social science. It there is a aim. It aims to reveal the social psychological characteristics of the person also through the language. So it is not only limited to investigation of the written language, but rather it has a deeper level of understanding also, which reveals the social psychological characteristics of a person. Okay, so it is not really at the surface. If you think it's only about the investigation, no, it's not just the language. Through it delves deeper as well. So now, can you tell me which work is subtitled The Poetics and Politics of Ethnography? Which work is subtitled The Poetics and Politics of Ethnography? Okay, I'll give you a clue. It was edited by James Clifford and George E. Marcus, and it represents a watershed in understanding the practice of ethnography. So, through this book, you understand the practice of ethnography better. It was edited by James Clifford and George E. Marcus. You have to tell me the name of the work. The subtitle is The Poetics and Politics of Ethnography. The work is called Writing Culture. Very good. Yes, writing culture is the correct answer. Now, which research methodology enables the study of subjective constructions of self and the others through spoken narratives? Which research methodology enables the study of a subjective constructions of self and other through spoken narratives? Oral, yes, it is oral history. Oral history, it enables the study of subjective constructions of self and others through spoken narratives. Now, who has stated that the literary fascination with archives and archivists as a function of modern memory in this work called La Memoire Satori, La Memoire Satori, which was published in 2003. Do you know who wrote this? And this work has stated that the literary fascination with archives and archivists is a function of modern memory. Do you know who wrote it? It's Regine Robert. Regine, Regine, Robert. I'll type it out. Now, moving on. I will give you three options. You have to tell me which among the following is a broad term for various research methods used to describe, interpret, and understand texts. Which of this method is a broad term for various research methods used to describe, interpret, and understand texts? Is it descriptive method, or is it word study, or is it textual analysis? Broad term for various research methods used to describe, interpret, and understand texts. It is textual analysis. Just because the word describe is there, that's why I'm saying read the whole question till the end. It is a method to describe, interpret, and understanding is also there. It is not just description. It is method used to describe, interpret, and understand text. So it is textual analysis. See, with research methods, no, everything is encoded in the question. Most of the questions, apart from the names of people and dates, if you read the questions thoroughly, you can get the answer correctly. So please read the questions from beginning till the end. Now, which qualitative research strategy relies primarily on participant observation and concerns itself in its most general sense with the study of not only study and interpretation of cultural behavior? I'll repeat. Which qualitative research strategy relies primarily on participant observation and concerns itself in its most general sense with the study and interpretation of cultural behavior? It is ethnographic. Very good. Yes, it is ethnographic methods. These are, it relies primarily on the participant observation, and it also concerned itself in its most general sense with the study and interpretation of the cultural behavior. Now, which method concerns the computer-aided storage, retrieval, interrogation, and analysis of text, and are generally found at the interface between literature studies and linguistics? I'll repeat. Which method concerns the computer-aided storage, retrieval, interrogation, and analysis of text, and are generally found at interface between literature studies and linguistics? Computational methods. Computational methods concerns the computer-aided storage, retrieval, interrogation, and analysis of text. Computational methods. Remember, okay? Now, observing a group of children playing, or observing an indigenous village and taking notes. That will be a part of which, it is an example of which research? You are observing a group of children playing in an indigenous village. This is an example of which research? Yes, it is ethnographic. Ethnographic method. Correct. Very good. Ethnographic method. Now, do you know who is the author of Doing Oral History? Doing Oral History, a definitive step-by-step guide that provides advice and explanations on how to create recordings that illuminate human experience for generations to come. It is about oral history. This particular book, Doing Oral History, it's a definitive step-by-step guide. It's guiding you that, and it provides advice and explanation on how to create recordings that illuminate human experience for generations to come. Yes, you know it correctly. It is Donald A. Ritchie. Donald A. Ritchie. Donald A. Ritchie. Now, so I'll give you 3 statements. You have to tell me which is not true about ethnographic research. Not true, which is not true about ethnographic method of research. It uses both qualitative and quantitative data. Is it true or false? Ethnographic research uses both qualitative and quantitative data. Is it true or false? It is true. Yes, it is true. Now, it includes brief history and an analysis of terrain, climate, and the habitat. It includes brief history and an analysis of the terrain, climate, and the habitat. Does it? Yes, it does. Yes, that is also true. It is a very inexpensive research method. Ethnographic research, it is a very inexpensive research method. No, that is false. Yes, that is not true. No, that's the false statement. Yes, very good. Now, can you tell me what is one of the most important aspect of researching for an autobiography, and is the establishment of the relationship between which 2 factors? Is it author and the reader, or is it author, the subject, and the culture? One of the most important aspects of researching for an autobiography is the establishment of the relationship between author and the reader, or is it author, subject, and culture? You're researching an autobiography. That is something that someone else. There is an author of the autobiography, and you are establishing a relationship between author, subject, and culture. Very good. Yes, it is not the relationship between the author and the reader is not so important, but rather the author, subject, and culture is more important. Very good. Yes. Now, can you tell me, compositional interpretation is a method that offers a way of looking very carefully at what? Compositional interpretation, I'll give you options. Compositional interpretation is a method that offers a way of looking very carefully at option A, the language and metaphors used. Option B, the context and concept and the context. Option C, the content and the form of images. What do you think it is? Compositional interpretation. Language and metaphors used, content and context, or is it content and form of images? Yes, very good. It is content and form of images. Option C is the correct answer. Good. Now, the most common methodologies deployed by those interested in visual culture now are what? The most common methodologies deployed by those interested in visual culture. Is it images, content and form of images, or is it semiology and discourse analysis, or is it language and imagery? Someone who is interested in visual culture, they deploy, like the most common methodology they deploy is based on what? You are interested in visual culture. And the most common methodology you will deploy is semiology and discourse analysis. Yes. Semiotic method, correct. Semiology and discourse analysis. Now, who discussed 3 kinds of signs? Iconic, indexical, and symbolic. Who discussed 3 kinds of signs? Iconic, indexical, and symbolic. I'll give you answer. I mean, options. Charles Sanders Peirce, or is it Ferdinand de Saussure? Ferdinand de Saussure, or is it Charles Sanders Peirce? Yes, it is Charles Sanders Peirce. Correct. Charles Sanders Peirce. Now, indexical signs have an inherent relationship between which two things? Indexical signs have an inherent relationship between the signified and signifier, between the author and the reader, or text and the author. Indexical signs have an inherent relationship between signified and signifier, author and reader, or text and the author. Yes, it is signifier and signified. Signifier and signified. Very good. Now, in which of, I'll give you options of the following. A main problem faced by while using autobiographical research method, which of this is not a main problem faced while using a autobiography as a research method? Is it focus on a single individual? Is it subjectivity? Or is it the incompatibility of the author and the between the author and the researcher? Focus on single individual, then subjectivity, or the incompatibility between the author and the researcher. Yes, it is a problem faced, like incompatibility of the author with the researcher could be a possible problem, which could be a main problem a researcher might face while using autobiography as a research method. So subjectivity and focus on single individual, you cannot ignore there, but incompatibility is a real problem that can be faced. Now, I'll give you a statement. You have to tell me it's true or false. Less relation to real life is a drawback of archival research. True or false? Less relation to real life is one of the drawbacks of archival research. True or false? Less relation to real life is one of the drawbacks of archival research. Is one of the drawbacks of archival research. Did I confuse you? So, okay, let me reframe. Is less relation to real life a drawback of archival research? Is less relation to real life a drawback of archival research? Is more complex and time consuming? Is archival research more complex and time consuming? That is true, but less relationship to relation to real life is not a drawback. Less relation to real life is not a drawback of archival research. But the time
Because an archive is drawn from real life.
real life, yes. Yeah,
An
it's
archive is deeply rooted in real life.
time.
Yeah, maybe that's what you wanted to say.
Yes, ma'am.
You did so well. Thank you, Rishidi. You covered so many aspects.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Okay, now ma'am will deal with Prasadi. Bye. See you tomorrow.
Yeah. So we have prosody and rhetoric coming up. After that, we have theoretical terms. Are you tired, YouTubers and Zoomers? This is interesting, isn't it? It's so exciting. We will just have a small talk for a minute or two. So the revision of all the topics is the key. At Vallath, we have been revising everything we studied for the past 1 month, and it's really helping. Students have confidence, they are able to remember. I'm going to make revision an everyday activity at Vallath. Anytime anybody wants revision, they will have it. Like that I'm going to do. Right. Actually, the lectures help us to understand things deeply. Revision helps us to remember and cross-connect. Those who have been here throughout the marathon, please eat something in between, relax. If you're feeling overwhelmed, take a few minutes break. No problem even if you lose out a few questions. What matters most is your mental, well-being. You have to relax, be happy, then everything you'll remember. Right. Okay, so we are going to talk about rhetoric and prosody. What is rhetoric? As you know, it is the act of speaking. Rhetorically speaking means you are persuading people, you are speaking in an effective manner. Isn't that what is called rhetoric? To speak effectively, you will use rhetorical devices like figures of speech, for example. Prosody is speaking in a very rhythmic manner. In poetry, you use prosody, patterns of rhythm and sound. That is what is called prosody. Prosody is speaking in a rhythmic manner, speaking in a manner without break. That is called fluency. Prosody, fluency, these are all very important. Now, figures of speech themselves are of different kinds. Some figures of speech have to do with sound. Some figures of speech have to do with emphasis. For example, hyperbole emphasizes something. Antithesis, this and that, emphasis it is. Whereas alliteration, onomatopoeia, these are figures of speech relating to sound. Metaphor, simile, these are related to comparison, resemblance, relationship between two elements. Right, everyone? Just saying all these things so that you can relax and think about it. Let us start with very simple figures of speech. Oh, my love is like a red, red rose. What is the figure of speech used there? Very easy. That's right. It is a simile. Oh, my love is like. When you say like or as, I wandered lonely as a cloud, isn't it? That is called a simile. And what is a metaphor? Metaphor is comparing two words without using the words like or as. All the world is a stage. Metaphor is related to allegory. Allegory is a metaphoric connection itself, isn't it? Allegory also puts something instead of something else. In a political movie, for example, instead of actual politicians, you get characters. Those characters are metaphorically, allegorically representing real politicians. Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian. It's a series of 3 metaphors. Where do you find this? Which poem am I quoting from? Thou still unravished bride of quietness. Yes, it is the Grecian urn. Ode on a Grecian urn. Very good. Thank you for saying that. Do you know that Jesus Christ spoke in an extended metaphor? What is that religious story that stands for a value? What is that called? Yes, it is a parable to teach religious things, morals, etc. We use parables. It's like an extended metaphor. What is the kind of far-fetched metaphor used by John Donne? Far-fetched metaphor. Yes, it is a conceit. A conceit can be both Petrarchan or metaphysical. Petrarchan conceit is romantic. Metaphysical conceit is cerebral, intellectual, not romantic. Right. Very good. At the beginning of phrases or clauses or lines, if one word is repeated, what is that called? Every day I'm doing a lot of hard work. Every day my students are getting better. Every day I get the hope that they will all pass net with JRF. Every day I think of 1,000 midnight children. That every day, every day, every day. Yes, you're right. It is anaphora. It is called anaphora. Walt Whitman used anaphora a lot. Anaphora was used by Walt Whitman. Never let a fool kiss you or a kiss fool you. What is that? Opposites. One sentence, after half the sentence, opposite is said. Ask not what the country does for you. Ask what you can do for the country. What is that? A rhetorical device where two or more clauses are balanced against each other by the reversal of their structures. That is chiasmus. 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 What is antithesis? Antithesis is an opposition made in the same sentence. To err is human, to forgive divine. Those are opposites. First part is the opposite of the second part. Did you understand? That is antithesis. Chiasmus is, first part is inverted. The structure is inverted. Always think of examples, then you will understand. Now, we talked about metaphor already. Somebody talked about metaphor and metonymy. That was Roman Jakobson. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Here, he does not mean physically ear. He talks about hearing. This is like a metaphor. But what is this called? What is this? Instead of a whole, he's saying part, or instead of one thing, he's saying a related thing. It is metonymy. Whole for part is synecdoche. Synecdoche is a kind of metonymy, replacing a thing with the name of a related thing. That is called metonymy. Right? Instead of king, you say crown. Do you remember that? Instead of Gandhiji, you put his spectacles. That is metonymy. But when you say India won the election, India won the match, that is synecdoche. Am I clear? Did you understand? I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. Have you heard this before? I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floor of silent seas. Have you heard this before? Does this sound familiar? It is from Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Love song. I should have been a pair of ragged claws. Instead of crab, he's saying claws. That is synecdoche. Okay, that reminds me, at the beginning of Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, the ploughman homeward plods his weary way. The way is not actually weary. It is the ploughman who is weary. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way. What is that called? What figure of speech is that? It is a transferred epithet. That's right. You're telling me the right answer. It is a transferred epithet. Let me give you a sentence, okay? Listen carefully. With eager feeding, eager means too much feeding. With eager feeding, food doth choke the feeder. With eager feeding, food doth choke the feeder. So feeding, feeder, different forms of the same word is appearing. Do you know what that is called? It is called polyptoton. 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 Different forms of the same word appearing in the same sentence. If you don't know, doesn't matter. Leave it. If you don't know, doesn't matter. What is this? Don't you know anything? If I say that, it is offensive. Don't worry, we will repeat it again. If I say an offensive idea in an inoffensive way, what is that called? Instead of scolding you, I will say in an inoffensive way without hurting you. What is that called? Euphemism. Correct. It is called euphemism. Very good. Euphemism. Open the door and your mouth. Shut the door and your mouth. What is that called? He stole my heart and my wallet. Be careful when you fall in love with strangers. He stole my heart and my wallet. It is zeugma. Two words fixed with the same verb. Zeugma, a figure of speech where a word applies to multiple parts of the sentence. Zeugma. Okay, let me drink some water. Water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. What is that? Water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. Everywhere there is water, but there is nothing to drink. That is irony. Irony. Julius Caesar did everything so well. Even then, Brutus said he is ambitious and Brutus is an honorable man. That is also irony. Irony is when the intended meaning is different from the actual meaning of the words. The intended meaning is different. Actually, you're saying something, but you're intending something else. That is irony. A play on different meanings of the same word. What is that called? You're using one word, but you're using it in different ways. The argument, Benjamin Franklin famously said, the argument is sound. Nothing but sound. That is pun. Pun. One word, but meaning two different things. The argument is sound. Nothing but sound. Are you getting it? Pun. Who said puns and quibbles are Shakespeare's fatal Cleopatra? Puns and quibbles are Shakespeare's fatal Cleopatra? Yes, it is Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson. Very good. Are you tired of figures of speech? Are you thinking, oh my God, not anymore? We are dying of figures of speech. Are you thinking? Not yet, eh? Okay, now tell me this. Who wrote Darkness Visible? Darkness Visible. I'm moving away from prosody and rhetoric. Yes, you said it. It is William Golding. Now tell me, which figure of speech is darkness visible? Which figure of speech is darkness visible? It's a phrase taken from Paradise Lost. It is oxymoron. Oxymoron is correct. Oxymoron, where opposites are said in the same sentence. You said it. You know it. Wow. All right. Let me ask you another question. Is this a dagger I see before me? The handle towards my hand? Who said this in Shakespeare? Is this a dagger I see before me? Its handle towards my hand? Yes, Macbeth. Macbeth. In the same play, who said, all the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand? All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. Yes, Lady Macbeth said this. Husband and wife are both using which figure of speech? Husband and wife are both using which figure of speech? Hyperbole or exaggeration. Hyperbole or exaggeration. There is a famous figure of speech which is an understatement. Queen Victoria was not happy with somebody and she said, "We are not amused." Queen Victoria was not happy with somebody. So instead of getting angry, she used an understatement. "We are not amused." It is a famous example for litort, Litotes. Litort, Litotes. It's an understatement where a positive statement expresses actually negative meaning. A positive statement is being made, but it actually means negative. That is understatement or litort. Litort. Many tongue twisters are there. She sells seashells in the seashore of Seychelles. What is that? She sells seashells on the seashore of Seychelles. Alliteration, that means words that come together are consonants. Words that come together are consonants. Like that, if in adjacent words, vowels are repeated, what is that called? The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, miles to go before I sleep. That is assonance. Assonance. Very good. Assonance. Alliteration was a feature of which poetry? Of which age? Alliteration was a feature of the poetry of which age? Old English poetry. Old English poetry had alliteration. That is why in the medieval period there was great alliterative revival. In the sorry, in the medieval period there was great alliterative revival. Okay, saying something in a very pithy manner, aphoristic manner. The child is father of the man. What is that called? I can resist everything but temptation. Right, it is an epigram. A pithy statement is an epigram. Now let me ask you something I've already asked you. His time, a moment, and appoint his space. His time, a moment, his space, a point. Like that you should say. Instead of that, his time, a moment, a point, space. Ulta kar diya. What is that called? I already asked you this. Words, grammatical constructions, etc. are repeated in reverse order. Yes, that is called chiasmus. 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 Bard of Avon. Who's that? Who's the Bard of Avon? Shakespeare. Instead of Shakespeare, you're putting an epithet. Or you're saying Shakespeare was the Homer. Shakespeare was the Homer. Virgil. Johnson was the Virgil. What is this? What figure of speech is this where instead of a proper name, you are putting a title or another name? Antonomasia. That is called antonomasia. Antonomasia is substituting a phrase with a proper name. Or I think it can also be vice versa. Instead of Shakespeare, you're saying Homer. Instead of Shakespeare, you are also saying Bard of Avon. Who is Nun of Amherst? Everybody knows. Who is Nun of Amherst? Nun of Amherst. Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson. Right? Good. Now, this everybody knows. Instead of completing something, you just put a pause there with dash, dot, dot, dot. omitting a word or a phrase, ... Did he peacefully? You're not saying die. Did he peacefully? Have you all very well? It is ellipsis. Have you all studied very well? Did you, after the exam, I'll ask you, did you ellipsis? Are you enjoying this? Or are you feeling tired? Are you all ellipsis? I'm not saying the word tired. Okay. Divorces are made in heaven. Where do you find this line? Divorces are made in heaven. In marriage, 3 is company, 2 is none. Where do you find this? It is in importance of being earnest, correct? It is from importance of being earnest. It is also a epigram. This is also epigram, right? Importance of being earnest is full of epigrams. Okay, I'm sure you are tired. You don't want to do any more of this. Okay, I'm going to change my topic. Shall I? Stress. What is the syllable called? To stress. Stress. What is it called? To stress. Spondy. Correct. Spondy. But you are people without any stress, aren't you? You don't have any stress. Unstressed. What is this foot called? Unstressed. Pyrrhic. Correct. Spondy is to stress. Pyrrhic is unstressed. You were originally unstressed, but then you become stressed. What is that called? Unstressed followed by stressed syllable. What is that foot called? First unstressed, then stressed. Iamb. That is iamb. Iambic pentameter. Unstressed, stressed, like that 5 times. Unstressed followed by stressed is iamb. Not undressed, unstressed. Iambic pentameter is 5 times iamb. Iamb is unstressed followed by stressed. So what is stressed followed by unstressed? That's right. Stressed followed by unstressed is trocky. I will ask you something. And then you have to tell me what it is. Okay, well, let's take a pause. What is this called? Pause. In poetry, what is this pause called? What is this pause called? Correct. It is called cesura. It is called cesura. Very good. One stressed syllable followed by 2 unstressed. What is that called? One stressed syllable followed by 2 unstressed. Dactyl. Did you know dactylic hexameter? Dactylic hexameter is the meter of heroic verse. Dactylic hexameter, heroic verse. Okay. Jabberwocky, have you heard Jabberwocky? It is a poem by Lewis Carroll. In Jabberwocky, so many disturbing sounds are there. A mixture of disturbing sounds. What is that called? Sometimes in the morning when birds are all singing. What is that called? Cacophony. Cacophony. Have you heard of cacophony? Cacophony. Cacophony. Too much noise, isn't it? Cacophony. Very good. Okay. Monometer has how many foot? Monometer. 1 foot. Pentameter, 5 feet. Hexameter. In one line, there will be 6 feet. Octameter, 8 feet. Did you know that Tennyson wrote in memoriam in iambic tetrameter? Tennyson wrote in memoriam in iambic tetrameter. That means how many feet? Tarang, 4 feet. In one line, 4 feet will be there in tetrameter. Very good. Now, let me ask you some stanzas. You take 8 lines of iambic pentameter, add one alexandrine to it. What do you get? 8 lines of iambic pentameter, add one alexandrine to it. What do you get? That's right, you get Spenserian stanza. 7 lines of iambic pentameter. What is that called? 7 lines of iambic pentameter. That's right, rhyme royal or Chaucerian stanza. A, B, A, B, B, C, C. Chaucerian stanza. A, B, A, B, B, C, C. Isn't it? Okay, you take lines of iambic pentameter without any fixed number or rhyme. What is that called? Lots of lines of iambic pentameter without any fixed number or any rhyme. That is right. It is blank verse. A 3-lined stanza is called what? Tercet. You can also say terza rima. 4-lined stanza is called what? 4-lined stanza. Quatrain. Quatrain. A ballad stanza is usually a quatrain. 2 lines of iambic pentameter rhyming. What is that called? 2 lines of iambic pentameter rhyming. Heroic couplet. That is heroic couplet. Isn't it? Heroic couplet. Very good. 8 lines of iambic pentameter. What is that called? 8 lines of iambic pentameter. It is Ottawa rima. It is Ottawa rima. Ottawa rima. Okay, it is 8:45. Ankita, who was supposed to do the next session from 9, just told me that for the last 30 minutes, there is a power cut and no Wi-Fi at her house. No problem. I will do the next session, which is literary terms. Sorry, theoretical terms. Without doing 45 minutes of rhetoric and prosody, shall I go into theoretical terms now? Would you like that? I guess that will help you more. We'll do theoretical terms. Shall we? Okay, good. We'll do very simple questions and also difficult ones a little bit. Tell me, who coined the term defamiliarization or Austranony? Defamiliarization or Austranony? Theoretical term. Yes, it is Victor Shklovsky. Victor Shklovsky. What is the term for plot or narrative structure in Russian formalism? Plot or narrative structure in Russian formalism? Sujet. Fabula is story. SJUZET. Sujet is plot. Isn't it? Sujet is plot. Very good. In which essay did Viktor Shklovsky develop the term defamiliarization? I forgot to ask you that. In which essay? It is in Art as Technique. Art as Technique. Do you know that Roman Jakobson talked about literature nost or literariness? Roman Jakobson talked about literature nost or literariness. Is there a term Boris Eichenbaum introduced? Boris Eichenbaum. Boris Eichenbaum is the author of Theory of the Formal Method. Theory of the Formal Method. That is his major work. Theory of the Formal Method. Have you heard of that? Yes. And Yuri Tinyanov, did he introduce any term? Yuri Tinyanov. Have you forgotten? Literary evolution is a term that Yuri Tinyanov talked about. Do you remember? Yuri Tinyanov talked about literary evolution. What is what can I say, journal that was associated with the Russian formalists, with the Opayas? Zborniki, that is right. It is Zborniki, Sbornikii. That's right. Foregrounding. Who talked about it? Foregrounding, the concept. In standard language and poetic language, who talked about foregrounding? Jan Mukarovsky. Jan Mukarovsky. Boris Eichenbaum's concept is SKAZ, S-K-A-Z. Boris Eichenbaum talked about SKAZ, SKAZ. It's the narrator's voice. Narrator's voice is SKAZ. Who talked about folk tales? Who talked about folk tales in Morphology of the Folktale, 1928? That's right, it is Vladimir Prop. Vladimir Prop talked about Morphology of the Folktale. Who talked about intentional fallacy and affective fallacy? Intentional fallacy and affective fallacy. That's easy. Wimsatt and Beardsley. Wimsatt and Beardsley. Who wrote the book, The Well-Wrought Urn? That is also a term. The Well-Wrought Urn. It is Cleanth Brooks. Cleanth Brooks. Who talked about ontological criticism? World's body. Ontological criticism. It is John Crow Ransom. Correct, it is John Crow Ransom. Who coined the term objective correlative? Objective correlative. It is Washington Alston, A-L-L-S-T-O-N, Washington Alston. Who talked about tension in poetry? Tension, which includes intention and extension. Tension, that is Alan Tate. Alan Tate talked about tension in poetry. Very good. Who talked about my themes, M-Y-T-H-E-M-E-S, my themes? My themes, Levi-Strauss, Claude Levi-Strauss talked about my themes, isn't it? Claude Levi-Strauss also talked about structuralist anthropology. Structuralist anthropology. That's right. Do you know, sorry, who developed the concept of mythologies in culture? Unlike Levi-Strauss's mythologies, who developed the concept of mythologies in culture? It is Roland Barthes. Roland Barthes. Do you know who talked about actant and semiotic squares? Actant and semiotic squares. S-Q-U-A-R-E-S. A-C-T-A-N-T, actant. It is A.J. Greimas, a structuralist narratologist. A.J. Greimas, G-R-E-I-M-A-S. A.J. Greimas. With which theory was Umberto Eco associated? Semiotics. Umberto Eco was a semiotician. Will you remember that? Semiotician. Rishati ma'am was asking you, Who talked about iconic, indexical, and symbolic signs? Do you remember? Tell me again. Iconic, indexical, and symbolic signs. Yes, it is Charles Sanders Peirce. In relation to semiology, do you know who talked about signs of the times? SIGNS. SIGNS of the times. That's about semiotics in popular culture. That was Umberto Eco. Signs of the times. Umberto Eco talked about semiotics in popular culture. Signs of the times. Okay, who talked about signifier, signified? That's very easy. Signifier, signified. Ferdinand de Saussure, correct. Ferdinand de Saussure talked about signifier and signified. Okay, that reminds me, who talked about implied author? Implied author. Implied reader is Wolfgang Iser. Implied author is Wayne C. Booth. Wayne C. Booth. Who talked about power, knowledge, governmentality? Yes. Who talked about biopower? Yes, it is Michel Foucault. Then, who is associated with the term hyperreality? Hyperreality. It is Jean Baudrillard. Jean Baudrillard talked about hyperreality. Who is associated with the concept of destruction? Destruction. From whom Derrida took deconstruction. Heidegger. Heidegger is associated with destruction. Tell me who is associated with schizoanalysis. Concept of rhizome, plateau, schizoanalysis. That's right, Deleuze and Guattari. Deleuze and Guattari talked about rhizome, schizoanalysis. What about grammatology? Grammatology. Yes, Of Grammatology was written by Derrida. Of Grammatology was written by Derrida, who coined the term grammatology. Ignace Gelb. Ignace, Ignacegelb. Ignace Gelb. Who coined the term intertextuality? You know that one. Intertextuality. That's right, Julia Kristeva. Julia Kristeva coined the term intertextuality. All texts are connected. Desire in language, she talked about. Yeah. And who talked about performativity? Performativity. Judith Butler. That's right. Judith Butler. Who developed the concept of écriture féminine for the first time? She also developed the concept of white ink. White ink also. Helene Cixous. Helene, Cixous. And who talked about meta-narratives? Meta-narratives. It is Jean-Francois Lyotard. Jean-Francois Lyotard. Very good, very good. Are you getting stressed? Is it too much for you? Relax. Think of the time you will all pass and get a job. Isn't it beautiful? You should always think we are going somewhere. We are going to one resort. Even as we start our journey, when we get to the junction of the city, in the city, you should not get stressed because you're going to live in a resort. Even as we start the journey, will we get stressed? No. YouTubers, do you know something? At Vallath, we don't even know the spelling of stress. STRACC, like that we spell stress because we don't know the spelling of stress. And our revision is like oil massage. Relax. Isn't it? So who talked about collective unconscious? Collective unconscious. Carl Jung. And who talked about id, ego, superego? Id, ego, superego, Freud, Sigmund Freud. Who talked about parapraxis? Parapraxis means an accidental mannerism or slip of the tongue. It is Sigmund Freud himself. Sigmund Freud. Who talked about real, imaginary, symbolic? Real, imaginary, symbolic. That was Lacan. Jacques Lacan who talked about it. Jacques Lacan. Have you heard about Alfred Adler? Alfred Adler, did you know that he talked about inferiority complex? Do you know Melanie Klein? She was associated with object relations theory. Melanie Klein, related to object relations theory. Have you heard of Anna Freud? She discussed defense mechanisms. Anna Freud. All right, forget all this. Who talked about mirror stage? Who talked about mirror stage? It is Jacques Lacan. Which reader response critic connected psychoanalysis to reading? Norman Holland. Norman Holland. Do you remember? Norman Holland, cognitive theory. Who is associated with subjective reading in the classroom, in reader response? Subjective reading in the classroom. It was David Bleich. David Bleich. Who is associated with affective stylistics and interpretive communities? That is Stanley Fish. That is Stanley Fish. Okay, forget all that. Everybody forget everything. Who talked about anima and animus? Anima, animus. That is Carl Jung. Very good. Anima, animus, Carl Jung. Who talked about the male gaze? Male gaze. Anima is there in class. Oh no. Anima is saying hello to us. Yes, male gaze. Laura Mulvey. Laura Mulvey. Okay, who talked about, what can I ask you? Interpellation. Who talked about interpellation? Louis Althusser. Correct. Louis Althusser. Who talked about cultural hegemony? Cultural hegemony. That's right. It is Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci. With whom, from whom did Karl Marx develop dialectical materialism? From which philosopher did he develop dialectical materialism? Hegel. From Hegel, he developed the concept of dialectical materialism. Hey, our Ankita is here. Ankita, I'm going to make you co-host. Ankita, until you came, I somehow managed, Ankita.
There was power cut at my place. It just came back.
No problem. We waited for you. Okay, you can ask.
Okay. So first I will show you some questions to the PPT and then I will ask you some more questions just orally.
Wow.
Let me share the screen. Okay. Right. Okay. So welcome again. So let's move on to the first question. Ma'am has already asked this though, but still. The idea of a collective unconscious is posited by dash.
In the archetypes and the collective unconscious. Ankita got stuck. Is it Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Jacques Lacan, or Ernest Jones? The idea of a collective unconscious. Yes, that is indeed Carl Jung. That's right. Ankita has got stuck, but doesn't matter. I can also ask you until Ankita gets back, and I'll ask Ankita to send me her PPT also. Right. Tell me, who is associated with reflection theory in Marxism and reification? Reflection theory in Marxism and reification. Do you know? Reflection theory in Marxism and reification. Georg Lukács. It is Georg Lukács. Poor Ankita's power cut is again started. No problem. I will continue. मैं हूं ना. Okay. Tell me who talked about one-dimensional man, eros and civilization. One-dimensional man. Who talked about it? That's right. It is Herbert Marcuse, the father of New Left. Herbert Marcuse, one-dimensional man he talked about. Who talked about critical theory, culture industry? Critical theory, culture industry. It is Adorno and Horkheimer. Adorno and Horkheimer. Okay. Then, who talked about aura? Aura, A-U-R-A, Walter Benjamin talked about aura. Walter Benjamin. Very good. Who developed the concept of cultural materialism? Who first coined the term cultural materialism? That's very good. That's right. It is Raymond Williams. Raymond Williams. Do you remember who developed the concept of cognitive mapping? Cognitive mapping. It is Frederick Jameson who talked about cognitive mapping. Frederick Jameson. Do you know who talked about reading against the grain? Reading against the grain. That is Terry Eagleton. Terry Eagleton talked about reading against the grain. Are you tired, dear friends? Are you able to pay attention? We'll stop in 10 minutes maybe. Okay? No problem. We will stop in 10 minutes, but we will just cover all this. Everybody knows the term intersectionality. Tell me who coined the term intersectionality? It is Kimberly Crenshaw. Kimberly Crenshaw. Tell me who coined the term gynocriticism? Who coined the term gynocriticism? Elaine Showalter, you are right. It is Elaine Showalter who coined the term gynocriticism. Who coined the term sexual politics? Sexual politics. That is Kate Millett, of course. That is Kate Millett. Who coined the term feminist critique? Feminist critique. Feminist critique. That is also Elaine Showalter. Feminist critique and gynocriticism together. Who coined the term feminine mystique? Feminine mystique. That is Betty Friedan. Betty Friedan. Did you understand? Very good. Who coined the term complexification of backlash? No. What was the term? Angela McRobbie. I myself don't know. Backlash is Susan Faludi. Backlash is Susan Faludi. Complexification of something is there in Angela McRobbie. I myself am confused. Okay, leave that. Who talked about borderlands? borderlands term. Gloria and Zelda. Remember? Borderlands, La Frontera, the new mestiza. Borderlands. Right. Then who talked about beauty myth? The concept of beauty myth. Naomi Wolf. Naomi Wolf. Strategic essentialism. Strategic essentialism. That's right, Spivak. What about subaltern? Who talked about subaltern? Not Spivak. Not Spivak. Not Ranajit Guha. It is Antonio Gramsci. Subaltern first talked about by Antonio Gramsci. Will you remember that? Contrapuntal reading. Contrapuntal reading. Edward Said is correct. Mimicry, ambivalence. Mimicry, ambivalence. That's right. Homi K. Bhabha. Homi K. Bhabha talked about it. Do you know Albert Memmi wrote The Colonizer and the Colonized? There he talked about dependency. Albert Memmi talked about dependency in Colonizer and the Colonized. And all of you know who talked about double consciousness. All of you know who talked about double consciousness. It is W.E.B. Du Bois. Leela Gandhi, Bell Hooks, etc. talked about post-colonial pedagogy. Post-colonial pedagogy. Have you heard of African socialism? African socialism. I think Leopold Sedar Senghor, the man associated with negritude, talked about it. African socialism. Man associated with negritude. Okay. There is a term called Afrofuturism. 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 Mark Derry, D-E-R-Y. Mark Derry talked about Afrofuturism. Who are the people associated with negritude? People associated with negritude? Leopold Sedar Senghor, Amy Césaire, Leon Demas. Leopold Sedar Senghor, Amy Césaire, Leon Demas. Can you guess what happened? Ankita Ganguly is back. Ankita Ganguly returns. Okay. In case power supply goes off, we will again. Ankita, are you there?
God, isn't it terrible day? Power cuts.
Power cut. Your Wi-Fi or hotspot or whatever is weak. So if you go up, I'll just start speaking.
Okay, yes.
You can read.
The term cyborg was used by Dash to posit an alternative mode of being, which, in being a hybrid of human and mechanical elements, would be beyond the constraints of biological sex and culturally stereotyped gender. So, who talked about cyborg? Julia Kristeva, Donna Haraway, Giles Deleuze, or was it Toril Moy?
Many of
Yes,
them
it
are
was
answering.
Donna. Yes. Donna Haraway, who talked about the term cyborg.
Okay.
Okay, next question. Viktor Shklovsky, a Russian formalist writer and theorist, defined defamiliarization as a literary technique that makes the familiar seem strange or new to the reader. Is it true or is it false? Was it really Shklovsky who talked about this? Yes. Shklovsky, in his essay Art as Technique, talked about this defamiliarization, which makes even very familiar things around us seem strange. Right. Okay. So here I have just given you a para, and you have to tell me what this paragraph is talking about. And I have given you no option. So you have to think and tell me what is this. This is a mode of narrative presentation, which, though not directly presented as a character's speech patterns, idioms, or grammatical idiosyncrasies, it presents thoughts, events, or reflections as if the narrative were the character's point of view. So, what literary term or what narrative technique is it referring to? Modernist prose is flooded with this technique. Yes, it is free indirect discourse. It is the narrative technique. Okay, correct. Next, genotext and phenotext are terms which are used to describe different aspects of language. And who used this?
Who used these terms? Is it Noam Chomsky, Ferdinand de Saussure, Julia Kristeva, or Elaine Showalter? Yes, it is Julia Kristeva, who talked about genotext and phenotext. She talked about Cora. Yeah, she talked about abject. Very good. Okay, you're back, Ankita. Continue.
Hybridity is a central idea in post-colonial theory that describes the emergence of new cultural forms from multiculturalism. Who talked about hybridity? Edward Said, Homi Bhabha, Partha Chatterjee, or Ania Lumba? Yes, it was Homi Bhabha who talked about hybridity. He also talked about ambivalence. Right, it was Homi Bhabha. Okay. Next, here we have to tell the publication year of this work. Culture and Imperialism is a dash collection of thematically related essays by Edward Said, stressing the connection between imperialism and culture throughout the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. In which year was it published? 1990, 1995, 1993, or 1997? Yes, Syed's Culture and Imperialism was published in 1993. Correct. So we have already talked about this. So what is schizoanalysis and who talked about this? Who were the theorists who were associated with schizoanalysis? Yes. Deleuze and Guattari talked about schizoanalysis. And two very important works by them are which talk about these concepts. 1,000 Plateaus and which other work?
Oedipus.
Yes. And please remember the publication years as well of all the major theoretical works. This time also they asked 5 questions from years. So be very careful about the publication years of all the major theorists and their works. Okay. So you have a statement-based question here. In psychoanalysis, the unconscious is the mental realm into which those aspects of mental life that are related to forbidden desires and instincts are consigned through the process of repression. Is it the true definition of the unconscious and repression? Are the statement or the concepts here true? Yeah. Unconscious is indeed the realm where all our forbidden desires are repressed and kept there. Yes. Okay. Now again, we have a very important work. Television, Technology and Cultural Form was first published in 1974. Please mark the year. Long before the dawn of multi-channel TV or the reality and celebrity shows that now pack the schedules. Who wrote this work? Stuart Hall, Raymond Williams, Roland Barthes, or E.P. Thompson? It's a massive work, very important, on the television culture and how technology changes our daily life? Yes, it's by Raymond Williams. It's by Raymond Williams, and very importantly, it was published in 1974. Okay. Here also, I have not given you any option. Just tell me as you know it. Okay. The Song of the Earth is a book about our growing alienation from nature. It is also a brilliant meditation on the capacity of the writer to bring us back to earth, our home. So, who wrote this work, The Song of the Earth? It's about how the writer can humble us back to our realities, to our surroundings around. It's by Jonathan Bate. Jonathan Bate is a very popular academic, professor, and writer. He has written many important works. Please do look up Jonathan Bate. In every set exam, in almost every alternative net exam, you will get to see questions from Jonathan Bate, very important academic and scholar. Please do look up some of his very major works also, along with the years. Again, we have a year question. Epistemology of the Closet is a book published in Dash by Eve Kosofsky-Sedgwick, who is considered one of the founders of queer studies. And this book tackles the question of what makes up human sexuality. So in which year was it published? 1991, 1990, 1993, or 1996? Yes, correct. It was published in 1990. As you all know, 1990 was a very popular year, was a very important year in terms of the works published, specifically works of literary theory. Can you tell me some of the other works which were published in 1990? Gender Trouble by Judith Butler. Very good. Gender Trouble by Judith Butler was also published in the same year, 1990. Okay? Right. The World's Body is a work of literary criticism by Dash. He belonged to neo-criticism, the writer. Yes, it's by J.C. Ransom. This time in net also, they asked about J.C. Ransom, the publication year of his works. Okay, so be very careful about the various schools of literary criticism, like Yale School of Literary Criticism, neo-criticism, and the major theorists and the works that these schools produced. Next, Scrutiny, a quarterly review, was a literature periodical founded in Dash by Elsie Knights and F.R. Lewis, who remained its principal editor until the final issue in 1953. So 1953 was the last time it had its issue. So it was founded in which year? 1927, 1932, 1933, or 1939? Okay, I'm getting mixed answers. All right, yes. 1932 was the year in which Scrutiny was founded, and it stopped in 1953. So 1932 to 53, that was the timeline of Scrutiny. Okay. William Empson belonged to which school of criticism? Because at least in every net exam, you will see a question like this. Who among the following did not belong to this school of criticism? So be very careful about the members. Yes, practical or neo-criticism also we can say. Next, again a year of publication year, a question of publication year. Writing Degree 0 is a book of literary criticism by Roland Barthes. First published in Dash, it was Barthes' first full-length book and was intended, as Barthes writes in the introduction, as no more than an introduction to what a history of writing might be. Yes, this work was published in 1953. Can you tell me 1957 was the publication year of which work of Roland Barthes? Writing Degree 0, 1953. 1957 was the year of publication of Mythologies. This time they asked it. 1957 was the year of mythologies. 1980 was the year of publication of 1980. Camera Lucida. Camera Lucida. There is also a very important work by Roland Barthes. So here we have some works and their writers, but one pair is wrongly matched. So choose the wrongly matched pair. A Map of Misreading by Harold Bloom, Revolution in Poetic Language by Lucy Irigaray, The Location of Culture by Homi Bhabha, and lastly, The Illusions of Postmodernism by Terry Eagleton. Which is wrong? Harold Bloom wrote A Map of Misreading, correct? It was not Lucy Irigaray. It was Julia Kristeva who wrote the work Revolution in Poetic Language. Okay, that's the only wrong option here. Okay. So, this theorist formulated a model for community psychology, believing that many mental health patients would have an improved prognosis if they were integrated into their family and community instead of being treated with institutionalized care. So, who is this theorist who talked about this community psychology? Freud, Franz Fanon, Charcot, or Lacan? Charcot, as you all might know, was a very famous doctor for hysteria. It was Franz Fanon who talked about this idea of community psychology, where he emphasized the role of the families and the near and dear ones might play in the life of the mental health patients. Okay, and do look up the years of his important works again, like Black Face, White Masks, The Wretched of the Earth. Okay, How to Do Things with Words is a book on speech act theory. By whom? Is it by Stanley Fish, Umberto Eco, Derrida, or is it by J.L. Austin? Yes, we know that it's by J.L. Austin. He's one of the pioneers of the speech act theory. Okay? So we have already talked about this, but here we have a bit more information. David Bleich is an American literary theorist and academic. He's noted for developing the Bleich heuristic, a reader response approach to teaching literature. He is also a proponent of reader response criticism to literature, advocating subjective interpretations of literary texts. True or false? Yes, obviously, it's true. David Bleich is a major, yes, propounder of these subjective responses to literature, reader response criticism to literature.
Wow, that brings us to an explosive end to this mega revision marathon. I hope you all loved it, even though it was slightly stressful because of the long hours. Remember, this is the building block of your JRF, of your career. Please relax, enjoy every moment, and rest of your life, ऐश करो. Okay, so here is bye-bye from Team Vallath. As usual, we'll be back with more. Have a peaceful, happy,